Welcome to Take the Exit, the podcast where we explore the stories that intersect with transportation in Illinois. Welcome to Take the Exit. I'm Bree Hankins. I'm the Bureau Chief of Communication Services at IDOT. Today we have a very special guest, Secretary Gia Biagi, and I will let you kind of give us your background a little bit before we get to talking. Just a real quick overview of what were you up to before you landed at IDOT?
Sure. Well, happy to be here, and I'm very excited about the Take the Exit podcast. I think it's a great way for us to communicate with people who care about the same things we care about. So by way of background, before I came to IDOT, I had inked probably almost 2 decades in government, mostly with the city of Chicago, and then also some time in the private sector working for a high design architecture and urban design firm. So I ran Chicago's Department of Transportation for 4 years under Mayor Lightfoot, and then also spent time, as I mentioned, in the private sector working with cities all over the world, mostly in the United States, on projects to improve quality of life, whether that's through roadway developments or park redevelopments or larger kind of land use strategies for residential housing, commercial development, those kinds of things. So really touching all aspects of the landscape in a city or a town or in a rural place.
So you are coming up on your 1-year mark here at IDOT. What were your short-term goals when you got here?
Well, my short-term goals when I got here were pretty simple. One was to listen. The second was to assess. And then the third was to look for big moves. So by listening, that meant going all around the state, talking with folks at IDOT, folks outside of IDOT, industry, communities, mayors, metropolitan planning organizations, to really listen and hear about folks, their aspirations for IDOT, their concerns, some of the challenges that they saw. And so sort of big bucket of listening was a big goal, and I was, I think, able to do that, and something that I continue to do. The second goal was to assess, and so that was really looking at, okay, of what I'm hearing, what are the patterns? What are people consistently saying? What are folks at IDOT saying that maybe is a different thing that industry is saying? How do we kind of look at those things together and look for how we bracket some of these items into buckets? And then the third thing, so listen, assess, big moves. And what does that mean to me? It's looking for the big things that we just have to take on at IDOT, the things that maybe are really hard, intractable problems that, we wish we took it on, 10 years ago or 5 years ago. But the moment is now. We're in an important moment at IDOT, and so we had to identify those things that we're just going to run after and get done. So I hopefully have achieved some of those goals, but that's an ongoing process, and that's, I think, part of my style, to repeatedly listen, take in information, figure out what it means, and then try to put it into practice.
What would you consider some of IDOT's accomplishments over the last year? You've been through an entire construction season, so tell us a little bit about what you view as wins for us this year.
Yeah, it's been an incredible year at IDOT. I mean, even with our recent announcement of the multi-year plan, a $50 billion program over 6 years, it's the biggest in the history of IDOT, the biggest in the history of the state of Illinois. It is one of the biggest in the country. That is absolutely a testament to the work that was done by folks before I got here, but also in the implementation, which is something that I'm very interested in supporting. We've been able to get shovels in the ground and cut a bunch of ribbons this year. So, I mean, certainly the Kennedy Expressway, that was a project, multiple phases, a lot of challenges, really tough marketplace to work in Chicago. We have literally millions of people using that asset every single day, and no one's going to stop using it despite all the construction we have going on. And so I think that was a huge achievement. We finished it ahead of schedule, a month ahead of schedule, and we really pushed to both communicate well and also to make sure that we were using all the knowledge we gained over the last 2 phases to get that done. That's a huge win. I was just down on the south side of Chicago with the 75th Street SIP project. And so this was a giant flyover where, we are in Illinois, the epicenter of where freight and movement of not only goods, but also people comes through on our rails. This was a huge, huge ribbon cutting that we just did. So there were those kind of big projects, and that's kind of in the Chicago marketplace, but there are tons all around the state. We did a really fantastic event in McLean County, looking at investing in a Route 66 bike and pedestrian trail that complements the economic development that area is trying to do. I was down in Shawneetown, Illinois, and investments that we're making to help revitalize some of our land-based ports, and that really help with the economic revitalization of many parts of our state. So many good things that are happening. So that's kind of on the construction front. And on some of the internal fronts, we've made huge strides with things like hiring and things like getting metrics around some of these processes that it's a little bit of inside baseball, and if you didn't work at IDOT, you wouldn't be so focused on it, but we are. And so we've been able to actually start to track some of the things that we want to speed up, to look at kind of where our pain points are, and then to make some progress. And so many good things happening. It's been a great 11 months.
We talk a lot about highway projects, and you mentioned some of those. But we do a lot more than that at IDOT. What kinds of work would you like the public to be more aware of?
Yeah, so you do. You see our big highway projects. I think even on the large highway projects, there are nuances and things that we're doing that are very innovative that once you ride on the new facility, you don't even notice it. But things like our double diamond interchanges, that is a real innovation. Things like our roundabouts, those are real innovations for both safety and fluid movements. They seem like they're not extra special, but they really are, and they're changing the way that people move and make it possible for you to get around. So there are those, but then there are also things like the smaller projects like in Taylorville, where we have a pedestrian bike bridge that was really 10 years of effort of communities across that area,
Sure.
sort of pushing on this project to get it done, and waiting for the replacement of bridge that really connects a significant distance of multi-use trail. And so we sort of operate at all these different levels, from, helping make sure we get the snow off the roads, making sure that potholes are filled where they need to be, but then also these large scale things. So, I hope that the public would think about, all the pieces of that. We're operating at this very high level, looking across the whole state, but then also we're right at your front door trying to make your life better.
You mentioned that you have been traveling all over the state and listening to our employees. Is there anything that you've heard in particular that surprised you, or that you thought you could make an immediate impact on?
Yeah, so those have been incredible conversations, and I do have to thank everyone I talked to for their candor. And really sharing what they love about IDOT and what they want to fix about IDOT. And I think on the one hand, there's so much love within the organization for being part of this family, that IDOT is a longstanding institution, and it's a place where you can make a life, you can make a career, you can wear 10 different hats in your career here. You can start out as a highway maintainer and end up doing design drawings, or be on a side of a shovel and then the side of a computer keyboard. It's all here, and that's what really impressed me about the organization, is the ability for people to live that kind of a career in one place. It's really fabulous. I think the other piece that really came across in those conversations is just people's enthusiasm for getting work done, for trying to remove the obstacles to it. And I think on that side, I certainly heard about some of our challenges. Yes, we need more people in the seats. That is a fact, and we are working on it. We definitely need to make it easier to bring in the next generation of folks at IDOT. And so we've been able to roll out programs that actually are a response to those conversations. One of the ideas that I heard numerous times was that we should bring back a program like the co-op program, which was where we get you right out of college. You come in you work with us for about 15 months, and you get first in line to be in line to get a permanent position here. I heard from everyone who ever came in through that program that was such a great moment in their life, and it changed the trajectory. And so we brought it back. It took a couple of months, but now we have a program back that works in the same way, and is really about building the next generation. And so I think those are the kinds of challenges that folks see. I think we have some good challenges, like we have a lot of money in our capital program and a whole lot of projects, but it also means we have expectations. It also
Sure.
means that things that we need to do to be able to deliver on that capacity. We can wish that we had done those things 10 years ago, but the moment's now. and we have to catch up, and we have to make it possible for people to deliver, because that's what everybody here wants to do. We're all putting our hand on the same shovel, and we need to be able to make it work together.
So you mentioned the intern to hire program, which
Yeah.
was formerly known as the
co-op.
co-op program, and there are still employees here today
That's
that
right.
started in the co-op program.
That's
So there's something to be said for that as a retention strategy as well. So we're trying to add more people. What would you tell prospective applicants about working at IDOT?
Yeah. Well, I think, as I sort of talked about earlier, I said, it's a place you can start here and you can stay for a lifetime if you want to, because there's an unending way to speak to your aspirations or your interests. I love the stories of folks who started out working in one place and ended up in what feels like a completely different other place. But that is a rare thing to have, especially folks who in an organization understand the consequences of the decisions they're making, right? Someone who once was working in the field that now is making policy decisions, that is a special person. That is a special set of skills, because when you make the decision over here, what that looks like for someone who has to live with those decisions.
Sure.
That is absolutely critical. So, and I would say, look, it's a great, you like to work inside, you want to work outside, you want to work with great people. It has so much opportunity and a lot of stability. And this is the moment. Come and join IDOT, because we have a capital program. Like I said, it's giant. We need as many hands as we can on it to deliver it. And so there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of experience that you can get in a short time. I've been in and out of government in the private sector or not, and I'll tell you that everyone should work in government, even if it's a short tour of duty. You should get a feel for what it means to deliver for the community that you live in, what it means for you to make a decision that has an impact on people's lives, and to get a little bit of empathy for a lot of the rules and procedures that we have to navigate.
Sure.
We didn't make those up. They are there because that's what the public has said that they wanted. Those are the checks and balances. Are there things we could do to streamline that? I'm absolutely interested, and we're working on it. But to spend a little time in government will make you better if you're in the private sector. And I've gone back and forth twice, and I'll tell you, it's great to be the client in a lot of ways, because you can be very thoughtful about what you're asking for. You can help direct where things land. But at the same time, folks who work in government, it's also good to have a spell in the private sector, because so much of the work that we do is sort of shaking hands across that divide. We depend on consultants and contractors, and so many of them used to work at IDOT, right? We call it IDOT University. You come here and you learn, right. And you might work in the private sector, you might still work for us.
Sure.
That is okay. We want to make sure that we see ourselves as a community, so that we can hand off what we need to folks who are working in the private sector who support us in that work and live up to our standards. And then there are things that we need to do specifically that are responding to what the public needs, and we are a very good barometer of that.
We rely so heavily on industry partnerships to get the work done. What do you think we do well within those partnerships at IDOT?
Yeah, I think we do a couple of things well. One, we communicate. And I think, it can always be better in a lot of ways. But I get a lot of really helpful feedback from the industry associations, whether it's the Trucking Association or it's engineers or it's any number of interest groups. It's really important that we have good lines of communication. And, it's the nature of things with organizations. And anytime you've got people involved, there are always moments where maybe we aren't communicating well or hearing each other well, but it's important that we have these kinds of structures, these organizations, where we can continue to re-engage and get good feedback. I mean, certainly, whether it's a project like the Kennedy, where we got good feedback from communities that in earlier phases we could do a little more to communicate well with general public about ramp closures and all the kinds of things that are happening there. That has an impact. Or it could be on some of our processes for procurement, for example, where industry says, hey, this is like opaque to us. We don't understand what's happening. Can you share more? And then the other part that industry can be helpful on are important issues that we're trying to solve, like what's happening with our disadvantaged business program. And this is a response to new rules and a rethink from the federal government on the program. But we don't have to rethink at all our commitment to disadvantaged businesses, women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses. Part of what we want to do is help grow those businesses and make sure that they're doing well alongside every other non-DBE. And the industry has been a great partner in that. We have got organizations that are helping us get folks recertified in a moment where we have to do this, who have been good communicators and giving us feedback on what's working and what's not. Like I said, it's, IDOT, we're an important institution, a family, all of that, but it's the bigger ecosystem that we sit within, and that touches all kinds of organizations and people. Not to mention all of the municipalities and counties,
Right.
Metropolitan planning organizations, all of those entities, they all have a stake in what we do. So not only communicating with industry, but also with that wide and deep well of stakeholders is something that we only learn from it when we communicate. And it also makes it easier to build trust over time. So when we do have a project, we're not just meeting you for the first time. We know each other. When we do have a challenge, we're not just, talking to each other for the first time. We know how to work things out. And those are the kinds of relationships that make the difference in every kind of project and every kind of policy. And so institutions, organizations, key individuals across the state, nurturing those relationships is something that we always want to make sure we're doing well and do better all the time.
Looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, what are you most excited about?
Well, I'm excited about a lot of things, mostly getting shovels in the ground on projects. We're really focused on a couple of areas, and two of them are speed and spend. How do we speed up our processes to get more projects going? How do we spend down our capital dollars so we can make sure we can make the next ask for the future capital program? But also ways that we can be smart and strategic. And one of the things that we've been able to work on, I was sort of lucky enough to step in January with a Blue Ribbon Commission that has been looking at IDOT. It was set in motion, I think, 2 years ago. I think it was ready to start on my first day. So it was a great opportunity, though, to work with legislators and folks in industry, folks in labor, as well as really some smart consultant help, and then using that as an opportunity to look inward and to bring more IDOT voices to the table. We had 60 different interviews done with IDOT employees about what could IDOT do to build a better IDOT, which is really the question on the table, around product delivery, governance, around capacity, which is hiring, those kinds of things, around equity, around sustainability. Those are sort of the big buckets of that Blue Ribbon Commission. And so what we did was we embraced it and have used it as a way to both set up benchmarks that we will judge our success by in 2026 and beyond, but then also really start to hone in on what are the strategic decisions that we need to make. So I'm really excited about transforming that body of work, which will be a report, into a blueprint for IDOT, where we say, great, here are the 27 recommendations. Awesome. Now let's take that and transform that into a set of benchmarks and metrics and ways that we can track our success and really work toward it in a way that we're all aligned. So that's one super exciting thing that's coming up that I think is taking hold of an opportunity and making it transformative for IDOT.
So that commission will eventually come up with a set of recommendations. You talked about moving faster and spending down. Part of that is innovative project delivery. And what in your mind does that mean for not just IDOT, but for the people of Illinois?
Yeah, so innovative product delivery, it sort of can feel like a jargon-filled conversation with lots of acronyms like CMGC and, construction manager at risk, those kinds of things. What it is it's a more expeditious way of delivering projects. That's what it is. And it's really saying, okay, if I'm doing, for example, 200 bridge projects, well, what if I bundled some of those, put it out as a package, did it as design build, because I can make it a less sort of complicated process of first step, we plan it. Second step, we get a consultant engineer. Third step, we get the contractor. It's a way of sort of pulling together some of these components that are on a traditional project with a design, bid, build are pulled apart and saying, okay, well, can we push those together? Can we use the expertise of the private sector to deliver it? And so that's, it's something that we've started to pilot. And in fact, we were able to get legislation passed this year that gave us a little more breathing room on the monetary caps that were limiting our ability to use tools that other states are using.
Okay.
So what does it do? It saves time, it saves money, and when you save time, you also save money.
Sure.
But it's also looking at getting some of the best ideas into the project, the earliest parts as you're scoping a project. You're working it through its paces and making sure it's the best possible project. So we are going to actively explore more ways to use it. I think we had one of our first and biggest bridge bundling projects out the door this year. That was a really important example. And we'll bring more folks to that team to say, okay, we have a lot of work to do. How do we look at it and say, okay, these are the kinds of projects that should go in this direction. These are the kinds of projects that go in this direction, and do it in a way that's using the best tools in the marketplace for getting things done.
So none of that would be possible without Rebuild Illinois. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of that and what the legacy you think will be of Rebuild Illinois?
Rebuild Illinois was just an incredible sea change for IDOT and for the state of Illinois. As many folks know, it was roughly $45 billion of capital funding for mostly transportation. So we got the lion's share of that. Passed in 2019, probably sort of got up and running in 2020. It's the biggest capital program, as I mentioned earlier, in the history of the state of Illinois. Like not since 1881, never really has there ever been this amount of funding. And I think IDOT has worked valiantly to try to go from a certain level of construction projects by value per year to having to double, almost triple that amount. And really, in order to kind of finish that program, we actually need to push out even more. And so that's a pretty big challenge. But it's huge. It means you're seeing shovels in the ground in all 102 counties. You're seeing projects that have been on the books for a decade actually move forward. You're seeing more money going to localities. We had a great program, thanks to the General Assembly and the governor. We had $400 million go out to localities directly for projects, local projects. So it's given us both the flexibility to create opportunities for folks to do those smaller scale projects and actually move the needle on the big ones that have been just, waiting for the funding. And I think it speaks to there's our growth in the program. And then in response, we have to grow the way that we think about delivery, right? We have to think at a bigger scale. We have to certainly provide the support and the capacity to do it. But it's just an incredible opportunity to change IDOT. So the legacy that you ask about, it's gigantic. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure investment all around the state. That is economic development. That is life safety. That is moving goods and services in a way that not just affects Illinois, not just affects the Midwest, not just affects the United States,
Sure.
Right? So much of the goods that we need travel through Illinois. What happens in Illinois affects the entire United States and really the global economy. And so anything that we've done and have been doing that streamlines that moves things a little faster, that makes a roadway a little safer, that gives localities a chance to influence what their Main Street looks like. All of those things have these long-term impacts that not only boost the economic fortunes of places, not only bring jobs and keep jobs here, but make it Illinois a great place to live and to work and to raise a family. Everything we do has something to do with that fact. How do we make lives better? IDOT makes lives better with every good choice that we make, with where we spend those dollars, and every minute we don't waste to get a shovel in the ground and get to that ribbon cutting and deliver facility to people where they are across our state.
Well, it would be hard pressed to end on something more appropriate than that, but we appreciate you having in this seat, not just at Take the Exit, but at IDOT. Is there any final parting thoughts for people at IDOT, for the people of Illinois that you would like to impart?
Well, it's a privilege. It's a real honor to be in this seat. It's not my seat. I'm just sitting in it. And really, I see my job is to block and tackle, is to help remove obstacles to good people doing great work. That's the job for me, and I couldn't be luckier to be at IDOT in this moment, surrounded by people who really want to get the job done.
Okay. Secretary Gia Biagi, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll get to talk again.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for riding along with IDOT. This has been Take the Exit. For more inside information on transportation in Illinois, find us on social media or idot.illinois.gov.